Hi, everybody. We're in the home stretch. Um, let's see. So we're back, and now we are zooming in Dr. Marjorie Zauderer, who is the chair of our board, and who will be giving a brief update on what we've been talking about over in the scientific meeting, and to help you understand the direction, some of the directions that our foundation will be going into from a lay perspective. For those of you who have not yet met Dr. Zauderer, she's the co-director of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Mesothelioma program and is associate attending on the Thoracic Oncology Service in the Department of Medicine at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Dr. Zauderer, I turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us virtually.
To say hi to everyone and thank you so much for coming. I'm so sorry I'm not there in person to meet with all of you and to spend time together. But I just wanted to start by thanking Julie, Shannon, Maya, Megan, and the rest of the Meso staff for really pulling off an amazing conference. I know in the scientific session, we had a great time and really amazing discussions. And I've heard great things about the sessions that you guys have been engaged today. And it was no small feat to pull this off in the middle of a sort of quasi post still in it kind of pandemic moment. So I just want to take a moment and thank the team. So thank you very much. I did want to share with you some updates that we had from the scientific session. We had a lot of people in the room, as well as a bunch of people joining remotely on Zoom. And we started our day off talking about emerging therapeutics. And this conversation really focused on lots of folks weighing in on new treatments in study, under development, and which ones seem to be the most promising. There was a lot of talk in that conversation also about how we can most efficiently study new treatments and get them to the clinic and to patients and get them through the regulatory process if they are effective more efficiently and quickly. And a lot of those conversations focused on some of the T-cell clinical trials that have been going on at different centers around the country that some of you may have heard about or read about. We then moved on and we had a interesting conversation about initial therapies for mesothelioma. And we talked about how with the new approval of immunotherapy with the ipilimumab and the nivolumab medications, that the standard of care has changed, but that there are also other ongoing studies asking the question, should some people get chemotherapy with one immunotherapy drug? And is that actually a good or even better treatment approach for certain types of patients? And sort of where the field is going and how we think about what's going to be the standard, the new standard based on these ongoing studies. And it seemed like there was a lot of different opinions on how some of these studies might influence how people practice, but that ultimately, until we see those results, it's hard to really speculate. And there was also a lot of conversation about the role of surgery and when to do it. And certainly given that tumors that are sarcomatoid entirely or have a significant sarcomatoid component, that traditionally we haven't done as much surgery for folks with those types of tumors. But now with these amazing responses to immunotherapy, that it may be time to revisit how we think about that. And there were some conversations about some trials that are starting up at different institutions and one through a cooperative group about really looking at the role of surgery and the histologic subtype that we've always classically thought of as something that we shouldn't do surgery on and that we have to reassess that. We then had a conversation about research priorities. And we had polled our scientific community to talk about the things that seemed most important to them and what those would be. And we had a good conversation around that. You know, the major areas of interest were around early diagnosis, non-invasive testing, better understanding the genetics and the quality of life. The second sort of bucket was around the role of surgery, when and how and who and what to combine it with. There was another sort of conversation and bucket around what about the people who don't respond to immunotherapy with their tumors, or tumors that respond but then stop responding, and really thinking about what comes next, as well as looking at the people who have amazing responses in their cancers to immunotherapy and what makes them different and why does that happen, and can we make that a reality for more people. And then the fourth sort of tranche was novel drugs, novel targets, what those targets are, how we advance the treatments around them. Then Shannon facilitated a discussion with the group around best practices and talked about some questions that come up from all of you as she talks to you about heated intraoperative chemotherapy, when to do surgery, if at all, in sarcomatoid disease, and some of the best approaches of thinking about surgery come first, should systemic therapy come first, and how to best sort of approach that. And it was interesting because it seemed like each institution did it a little differently. So at least for pleural disease, there were some places where they always do surgery first, some places where they always do chemo first, and some centers where it depends on the particular patient and disease circumstances. And so there was a lot of really great conversation about working towards standardizing these approaches so that we make the best decisions possible, and that it's more uniform across the different centers. And then finally, we closed up just now with a really vigorous discussion and a lot of enthusiasm around the foundation working to create designation for centers of excellence, both to help patients navigate where to go for treatment, but also to help community providers access expertise when they need it. So even if you can't make it to a center that has a very high volume, your local doctor at least can get you a consultation virtually with that place and really build up that network so that expertise is more distributed geographically, more accessible to people. And also ensuring that, we highlight the places where that expertise does exist for patients who are trying to navigate what can sometimes be a confusing process. So we left those sessions with a lot of things on our to-do list. We're going to have some small working groups that we build around the centers of excellence, around thinking about standardization of collecting research samples and making decisions about surgery. And if we can't have a consensus, then we're going to think about clinical trials to help answer those questions where there's still debate and uncertainty. And so all in all, I think it was a great meeting and a lot of really engaged practitioners spanning all the different specialties and surgery, pathology, medical oncology, people in the lab, people who do clinical trials. So it was a really great, diverse group focused on trying to improve treatments for mesothelioma. I think that's my summary. And with that, I would pass it back to you, Julie.
Well, thank you, Dr. Zauderer. Thanks for zooming back in. I know it's been a long day on camera yesterday and today, and we really appreciate you. So we're going to all say goodbye so you can get back to your family. So thank you for being with us. Thanks again, everyone. And in the energy, bandwidth, and the sheer exhaustion that comes from putting on a conference, I'm going to say this on behalf of the foundation staff, board, our volunteers. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our generous sponsors for making today possible. And safe travels. Go home, go enjoy Chicago, whatever it is that you're going to do next. Thank you for being here, and we will see you again soon, hopefully without masks, but even if not, we're going to try and get back together again in a year.